Welcome to another edition of the D&D Morning Show.
Coming at ya.
Right now. Today we're talking about proteins. Meat protein in particular. So we're going to talk about meat protein. But first we're going to have a fun fact about Drew eating chicken. And then we'll have the main topic. We have a recipe for you, which is a chicken salad sandwich recipe.
Delicious.
And we'll end off with a quote.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So this fun fact, please enlighten us. Dorothy loves this.
It's pretty funny to me. But Drew eats his chicken with his fingers. And he gets it in there and eating it with his fingers. The first time I saw him do this, I was probably just staring at him the whole time like this.
Dorothy often stares with her mouth open though, so.
And he looks up at me and he says, "What? What's wrong?" And I said, "Do you know you're eating chicken with your fingers?"
I don't even think it was like the first time. It was like a few times after, because we don't eat chicken too often, but when we do, I eat it with my fingers. And it was probably like after we got to know each other a little bit more, Dorothy was like, "Why do you eat chicken with your fingers?"
Because I'm there cutting it off the bone with the knife and the fork like a human.
Like a civilized individual.
And he's like, eating it like
Pretty
his
sure that's not
fingers.
what I look like. Alright, look. Let's take a chicken drumstick, for example. It has a handle.
It's a bone!
It was meant to eat with your hand.
Alright.
So anyways, Dorothy and I go back and forth like this often, but I still think that there's nothing wrong with using your fingers because, I mean, years ago there wasn't even utensils. So I'm just staying strong with tradition.
With tradition! I'm not sure that we will ever agree on this topic, so maybe we should just move on.
Let's move on. I will say that Dorothy does use her fingers a little bit. Before she wouldn't even touch the chicken, and now I catch her. I'm like, "What are you doing there?"
Well, some of the pieces are a little bit tucked in there, and you can get it a little easier with your fingers. But I then put on my fork.
All right.
Anyway, let's talk about meat protein.
That's right.
Let's get into it, Drew.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to mention that we feel that you can get enough protein from plants and other areas of, from fats to grains to nuts and seeds. We live a plant-based diet, so we feel you can get enough protein without meat. But there's a lot of people that aren't plant-based and they need meat in their diet or want it. So we want to explain that how protein digests. So maybe if you have digestion issues, gas, bloating, indigestion, constipation, if that's an issue for you, maybe you need to have more of the easier to digest meats and less of the harder to digest meats.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a tier pyramid system, and we're going to start at the most easily digestible proteins, and we're going to just work down the tier to the harder to digest proteins.
That's right. And we'll go by quite quickly. This does get pretty intense or in-depth.
In-depth.
But we'll go quite quickly just so we can get this done in a short amount of time.
That's right.
So what's at the top?
Oh, I was going to ask you what's at the top. So at the top we have eggs, and egg whites in particular are going to be the easiest digestible protein. Eggs digest quickly as well. And then down from there we have fish.
That's right.
So up there in the top with the eggs is fish. Is super easily digestible and utilizable for the body as well.
That's right. So when we say it's digestible and utilizable, we mean our body can process it properly, turn it into energy, and burn it off. When you have difficult proteins to digest, it's usually stored, and then we don't get that energy because our body really struggles to process it, digest it, break it down, and turn it into energy.
What's next?
Then we get into our birds.
Our birds.
We get into chicken, for example, turkey. Those are they're quite close to eggs and fish, but they would be take a little bit more time, a little bit more effort, I would say, to digest. So you have your chicken and your turkey that are white meats, and they digest quite quickly as well.
Mm-hmm. And then, is it are harder to digest ones after that?
Yeah, well, it would get harder to digest, I suppose. You could say, like, if you look at, I think size in this regard, like if you look at if you look at your red meats, for example, many times when we have like a big piece of steak, it's a giant piece instead of 4 ounces, or even chicken breasts are much smaller than the big pieces of steak we usually have. So those tend to be a bit more harder to digest. You could find more saturated fats in red meat as well, more than you would in white meat. White meat meaning the fish, chicken, turkey. So the
Eggs. Well, it's not meat, but eggs.
I don't know if you'd find saturated fat in eggs. I think.
Okay. I should listen.
So those would be so that's how we would start. And then of course there's protein powders. Pay attention to your protein powders.
Okay.
If it's an isolate, it would process pretty quickly, but we try to stay away from those in this particular tier that we're talking about because many of them are highly toxic and do more damage than good. So, do you have
it went by so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the very basics. When we talk about nutrition, we talk about digestion. That's why we run them down that way, because we're not saying stay away from red meat, for example, or we're not saying don't eat chicken, you should eat egg whites because they're at the top. All we're saying is, like in the evening, for example, if you have like a big giant piece of red meat, and that's going to be very difficult to digest, so you might find yourself not having a restful night's sleep or not sleeping as well as you would if you had a nice light meal like chicken breast or maybe fish and broccoli and wild rice, for example. That'd be a nice, light, easy to digest meal. If you have a steak and potatoes and maybe a little thing of greens, usually greens don't go with steak and potatoes, for example, then that's going to be harder to digest, and it kind of takes energy from your body instead of giving it to you. So that's why we like to run it down that way. We're not saying don't eat any of them. We're saying try different ones, see what works for your body, and understand that all of them digest differently.
That's right.
Yep.
Recipe time?
Recipe time.
Recipe time. The recipe today is a chicken salad sandwich, and it's super easy to make. You take a chicken breast or a couple chicken breasts and you chop them up into chunks. You can add celery to that, a couple celery stalks. Is that what you call
That's
it?
what you call them.
I call them sticks, but Drew corrects me all the time. A couple celery stalks, and if you like, you can put some chives in there or green onions. And what we don't use mayonnaise or recommend using mayonnaise, but we would use a non-dairy yogurt, but you could use a Greek yogurt as well. Some lemon juice, salt and pepper. And there you go. Sometimes we add in some dried cranberries. That tastes good in there too. And then you just put that on your bread, and there you got a healthy chicken salad sandwich.
It's absolutely delicious, so give that a try.
We're going to end off with a quote, and Drew's got our quote today.
That's right. My turn.
That's his turn.
So the quote is, living healthy isn't a goal, it's a way of life.
And I think, I love that quote because it is an all the time thing. You know, with a goal, once you reach your goal, you're usually moving on to something else, right?
Or like have a different goal.
Or have a different goal. But it is a constant thing. It's a way of life. Yeah.
That's right. You're always working to living a healthy lifestyle, and I don't think there's an end destination.
No, we are always learning and evolving and getting better. So I don't believe there is an end point.
That's
like
right.
a goal, there would be an end point. But with this, there is not.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the D&D Morning Show.
We'll catch you on the next episode.
See you guys.
Bye.